Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming and joining us for the learning of Teres Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. We are sponsored by Shalom Fogeli, Lenishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzvi Miriam bas Gad, Yosef ben Siyam and Yaakov Zev. We're sponsored that Chayetzivya bas Shoshana Gittel should find a great shidduch by Baruch Ian Nishmas Yaakov Chaim and Abba Esther bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin, and Rafur Shalema for Liba bas Anya. We're sponsored for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel, Ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry for Rafur Shalema, for Toiba Reiza Bas Hinda, and for great shidduchim for their daughter and grandchildren. We are sponsored by Menachem Yemansky. Looking for all those that are looking for a zivik should find it quickly and easily. And we are sponsored by Eddie Chazan, who is not in a fancy restaurant tonight, but even so, he's doing it for the safety of global Jewry and for the nitzachon and safety of the IDF. For a few scheduling notes. We have tomorrow night. I'll be traveling tomorrow. Tomorrow night I will be broadcasting from the shul back in the Aguda. So, people that live close like Reb Elia Yafi and Chaim Kramer and Berish Gesserman and Dalia Engel, we hope you'll join us in the shul, as we will work very hard to try to have a minyan in the shul for the Daf Yomi. That's a Elul task to try to accomplish. And Ruven Shannon is now going to join us also. He's a steady man. Also, the other scheduling note that I wanted to mention is that we will start a new Masechta. I believe it's next Wednesday. It's a short one. It's Hurrius, which is 13 Blat. So sponsorship of this Masechta will be $360. We already got one sponsor for Hurrius, and that is Mark Frankel. Anyone else who wants to sponsor this short but real big accomplishment, because with it we finished Seder Nezikin, should let me know. We begin. Rabbi, Shoshana Basadina should have Rafur Shalema B'Sech Shar Chali Yisrael. Zlata Bas Esther Peril and Pesha Bas Miriam. Shalom Dov ben Pesha. Yaakov Yosef ben Chayesar. They should have Rafur Shalema B'Sech Shar Chali Yisrael. Yes. Ruchama Bas Eli Melechayim. The Neshama should have an aliyah. Okay, we're holding two lines from the bottom of Daf Samach Tesamid Beis. It would seem to be needless to say that as we are in Elul, we have in mind to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Dibarta Bam, L'asais Nachas Ruach to Hashem. The best way to ask Hashem for another year of life is to tell Him that we want to use our life for learning Torah, because that's the reason why Hashem created the world. Bereshis, Bishvil Torah Shenikra Reishis. So if somebody wants to learn Torah, Hashem is very happy to give them a new lease on life. So, two lines from the bottom of Samach Tesamid Beis, Amar Rava. Zaina Oivedes Kechavim, if there's a Zaina who's a pagan, the Yisrael Mesubin Etzla, and Yidden are reclining near her, Chamer Shari, the wine is permitted. Why? Nehei de Tokiflu Yitzra Davera, even though it overwhelms them, the Yitzhahara of lust, but Yitzra the Ayinesach like Tokiflu, but their Yitzaharas are compartmentalized, and therefore urge of Nesach wine is not overpowering them, and therefore they will not allow her to do any idolatrous libation. Now this, by the way, is not a very big chiddush. We find that people sit on the Mizrach Vant and they answer Amen Yesh Mei Rabba with a lot of kavana, but in the office they bend the rules, and in their mind business is business. We have people that are sit and maybe learn a Daf Yomi and other shiurim, and then when they go out and drive, they make a big chilul Hashem. Unfortunately, the Yitzhahara is in people compartmentalized. Now, Zayna Yisraelis v'Oivdei Kechavim Mesubin, a Zayna who's a Yisraelis and who was succumbing and offering her body to these men, v'Oivdei Kechavim Mesubin, Chamra Aser, the wine is Aser. Why? My time, Ahoyo v'Zila Alayu, since she is cheap to them, Basrayu Greira, she schleps after them. In other words, they won't be afraid of her because they look at her as a cheap woman, and they won't be afraid to be Menasach, and she's not going to stop them. She's meek with them. Ha'ubeisa, you know what? We just hit 30 Zoomers. So we're going to welcome in Saba and Mark Frankel. Mark was away in California, and the fact that he was in California, I don't know why he couldn't tune in from California, but he must have been very busy, and a different time zone, and he got his watch confused, all kinds of things. Mark Frankel, Yaakov Warman, Ruvain Pollack, Shelley Zeitlin, Chaim Kramer, Irving Fishbaum, Yitzi Fuchs, Eddie Chazan, Nachman Chapler, Barish Gesserman, Marshall Castle, Yitzhak Muller, Barish Gesserman, Menachem Yemansky, Baruch Ian, Dr. Block, Shimon Klein, Shalom Fogel, Gedalia Engel, Barry Cement, Rebellia Yaffe, Ruvain Shannon, Michal Avram Chavin, Yisrael Fesher, Stephen Holtzman, Avigdor Fried, Mo Kushner, Mo Kushner, Abe Arbach, Avram Rezepkowitz, that's Barry Cement. Barry Cement. Okay, so 3 lines from the top of Ayin Amud Aleph. Ha'u Beisa Da'avi Yosef Beikamer di Yisrael. There was a house that there was wine belonging to a Yid. Oil of Oived Kechavim, a guy came in, Achta L'dasha Ba'apeh, and he closed the door. However, although he locked the door, V'hava Biza B'dasha, there was a keyhole that you could look through the door. When he looked through the door, he saw that a guy was standing amongst the barrels. Amarava called the lahade biza shari. Whatever could be seen from the keyhole, that wine is okay, because the guy would be afraid to touch wine where it could be seen through the hole. But the high gisa, asa, wine on either side of the hole which was beyond view, and he locked the door, it's also. How Chamer to Yisrael, there was a wine of Yisrael, Davi Yosef, how Chamer to Yisrael, there was wine belonging to Yisrael, Davi Yosef Bebeisa, it was situated in a house, David Dyer Yisrael Bel Yoina, the Yid lived upstairs, and the guy lived downstairs. The wine was downstairs. Now the Yid was able to, he had a hatch, and he was able to look down and see that the guy wasn't touching anything. However, Shama Kol Tigra, there was a fight outside. And they both went to see what was going on. Novke. Kadimas Oivik Kechavim, the guy came in, it looked like he came in first, and after Ladash, he closed the door, he closed the door behind him. Amarava Chamer Shari, the wine is mutter, because the guy couldn't be sure that the Yid maybe came in before him. Meima, thank you very much. Meima Amar, just like I came back, I lost interest. It wasn't very interesting outside. Kadam v'asi Yisrael, it's very possible the Yid came before me. V'yaseh bel yoin, and he's sitting upstairs, v'kachazili, and he could see me. So he would be afraid to tamper, and he would be afraid to touch it. Hahu ishpiza. We're going to have like 12 cases over here, one after another after another. And make yourself comfortable, Rabbi Isai, because we have a real night. We have a beautiful chumash here prepared for you. We're starting the 13th parak of Zvachim, so a lot of excitement coming up tonight. But first, a bunch of cases. Hahu Shpiza, it was a inn, a hotel. Davi Yosef Beichamed Yisrael, it was a Yiddish wine in the hotel. They found that a guy was amongst the barrels. Amar Rava, the Rava said, Im nitfis olav kiganav shari. If he had no place to be there, so that if he would have tampered it, he could have been arrested as a thief, then the wine is permitted. But if he had an excuse to be there, he came in because it was thundering and lightning, he came in because there was some enemy soldiers there, so then the wine is also because he wouldn't be afraid, he's bold because he has a reason to be there, so he might have tampered with it. There was a house that had wine, and a guy was standing amongst the barrels. If he had, again, the same idea, if he had an excuse why he was there, the wine is asr. If not, chamra shari. So the Gemara asks about this idea, meisvei, nina lapundik, if the inn that the Yid had wine in was found to be locked, or if the Jew left the guy and told him to watch the wine, implying that he wouldn't be there for a while, also. So the Gemara says, my lav, isn't this talking about even if he would have no excuse to be near the wine? My lav, afagav the less l'ishtamute. Says the Gemara, no, it's consistent what we said before. It's talking about b'd'islay l'ishtamute. He had an excuse to be over there with the wine. He had an excuse to be amongst the wine, so then he would be bold, and that's when it's forbidden. Hahu Yisrael v'avikachavim davi yisivei v'kashasu chamra. A Yid and a guy were sitting, and they were drinking wine. Shama Yisrael called sluyei bekanishta. The Yisrael heard an Amein Yehishmei Rabbah. So come the Ozel. He got up to go. Now the question is the guy going to tamper with the Yid's wine because the Yid went out to daven? Amar Rava Chamra Shari. The Yid's wine is permitted because Meimer Amar, the guy is concerned, he's going to remember that he left the wine and he's going to come back. Hashta Mitkelei the Chamre, he's going to remember that he left his wine, and he's going to come back. They were sitting in a boat. Shama Yisrael Kol Shipurei Debei Shimshei. The Yid heard the sound of the shofar. The sound of the shofar was an alert that it's almost Shabbos. Now he wanted to get off the boat. The boat's outside of the Tchum, so Nafak va'azal. He went out to descend and go on the mainland for Shabbos. Amar Rava Chamra Shari. The wine is permitted. Now this is a shock. Why should the wine be permitted? He's not going to return to the boat and be Mechal Shabbos. Meimar Amar, because he's going to say, Hashta Mitka Lechamre, he's going to remember that he left the wine, V'hadarasi. You'll say, what do you mean? The guy's not going to worry that he's going to come back. In order for him to come back, he would have to be Mechal Shabbos and go Chutz L'Tchum to come back on the boat. The Imashim Shabbos, very interesting. Rava says that Goyim don't believe that Yidden keep Shabbos religiously. Very interesting thing. Ha'amar Rava said, I had inside information. Amali Isser Giyura. And by the way, it's an interesting piece of trivia, but Rava knew a lot about Geirim because the Gemara says elsewhere that Mechuzah, where Rava was a Rav, was a city of Geirim. So Rava said, Isser Giyura told me, Ki havinon ba'aramiyusan. When I was a guy, I'm telling you, Amrinon, we used to say, Yehudai loy minter Shabbos. The Jews, they really don't keep Shabbos. They make a good face of it, but they really don't keep Shabbos. Why? The minter Shabbos, if they really kept Shabbos, there should be a lot of wallets in the street. Because, look, people must forget and not put away their wallet. So obviously, if they forget, they carry the wallet, even though it's a deraisa. The imintre Shabbos, because if they keep Shabbos, kama kisei kamishtakei b'shuka. We should find many wallets we should find many. We got to try to mute people here. We should find many wallets in the street for people that forgot that it was Shabbos. It must be that if they find that they're not leaving their credit cards in the street, they're just Mechal Shabbos. However, that's not true. Below Yodana, they don't know that there's an eitzah to bring the wallet home, and that's to carry it less than 4 amas at a shot. Below Yodana, the Svirlan Reb Yitzchak, Damar Reb Yitzchak, Amoyse Kis B'Shabbos. If somebody found that he was carrying his wallet, he could bring it in less than 4 amas at a time. Now, this, by the way, doesn't figure out how they get the wallet back into the house, because the wallet is in the Rishus Harabim and the house is the Rishus Yachid. That's another issue. But it does, at least they could bring it close to the house. It's not left in the street.
Rabbi?
Yes.
The ship was outside the Tchum.
Correct.
How is he going to go outside the Tchum and
He's not. He can't. But the guy doesn't believe that he keeps Shabbos. So therefore the guy is afraid that he's going to come back. Now, Hahu Arya, there was a lion, Davinoim b'matzarta. that was roaring by a wine press. Shama Ovid Kechavim, a guy came to, come for cover. This year, this summer, we've had a lot of beer sightings up here. If somebody sees a beer, they run for cover. So here, the guy saw, it could have been he saw Marshall, but in this case he saw a bear, a lion, right? So he saw a lion, and he ran for cover. Shama Ovid Kechavim, Tasha Beinei Daneh. And the question is, do we worry that once he's hiding amongst the barrels, he did some hanky-panky? Amarava Chamra Shari. Why? Because the guy figures, I'm not going to take a chance, just like I run for a cover. Maybe a Jew is also going to run for cover and come in too. Maybe Amar Kiechi de Toshina Ana, Ichinami Yisrael Acharoi. A Yid will also come and run for cover, but Kachazili is going to see me if I do anything, and therefore he's afraid to do anything. Now, I want to give some people the job of trying to call Aaron Swade. I tried, and I've left him messages, but I haven't been successful. So maybe if some other people also try to call him, we miss him very much. Also, I don't know where Danny Vogel is. We're missing him as well. Hano Ganve, the Solke La Pumpadisa, thieves went up to Pumpadisa, Upaschu Chavyosa Tuva, and they tampered with many barrels. Now that's a big problem, because here they actually tampered with the barrels. Amarava Chamra Shari, the wine is permitted. Now this is not very praiseworthy. My timer, because we go busting the majority, and Pumpadisa, the majority of thieves were Yidden. My timer, Ruva Ganve Yisrael Ninu, and of course a Yid doesn't make the wine Yayanesa. Now another case happened in Nardo. Nardo.
Say that the guy nothing but it's solid. They were outside the oven.
No, Sulke just means that they came up to where the wine was, but they were from Pumpadisa. Now,
So they don't have the same status like conservative or reform?
No, absolutely not. They were Shomer Shabbos. They were a gartel, and they were kind to kids.
But they stole.
They stole. That was their profession.
Okay.
Again, that's what I told you about compartmentalization. Business is business. Now, in this case, the Gemara tells us as follows. Hava uvda b'Nardoi. There was an incident in Nardo where they broke into a lot of barrels. V'amar Shmuel chamr shari. The wine was permitted. Now here, the Gemara says there is a rule that if, let's say, there was in a valley a series of fields, and in one of the fields there was a mace. Now, it was in the winter when people didn't walk in the fields because they would muddy it and ruin it. So it has a din of Rishus HaYachid. Rebbe Eliezer says, even so, a person that walked in but doesn't know if he went into that field that had the mace, Rebbe Eliezer says that's a case of Suffolk Bia, where he's not even sure if he came into the right field. If he was in the field, he just wasn't sure if he went over the mace, that's a Suffolk Maga, and there we would say Suffolk Tumah B'Rishus HaYachid is Tameh. But here, it's a Suffolk Bia. So says the Gemara, in Arda, there's no majority of thieves. But he holds that since here we're mesupik, if a guy ever entered into the house, so that's called the suffix bia, and therefore, says the Gemara, command to Rebbe Eliezer, it would seem to be like Rebbe Eliezer, the Amar suffix bia tar. The Tanan, it gives the case that I told you. Hanichnas labika b'yamaisa gesham. Somebody enters a valley. A valley is a series of fields. In the winter, when people don't go there and it has a dinner of Rosh Hashanah, v'tumah b'sada plainis, and tumah is in one specific field. V'amar halachti b'makam halos. I was in that valley. V'eni yodeim nechnasti lo'isa sadeim lo'i nechnasti. I don't even know if I went into that field. Rebbe Eliezer, I'm a suffix biatar. If he knows that he went into the field, he's just not sure if he went over the grave. Suffix maga tomei. So here also, since we don't know if a guy came into the house at all, he wants to say that it's a suffix bia. Says Nuraloi. No. The Gemara says, in this case, it's because it's a svek sveka. Suffix if it was a yid or if it was a guy. And even if it was a guy, suffix if he tampered with the wine or he was only looking for money, because people used to hide their money in wine barrels. Shani Hasam Kavan the Ika the Paske L'Shemamayna, since people open up barrels just for the money, to find money, have a svek sveka, and the svek sveka is mutter. This is the 10th case now. 10th case as we turn the page on this very busy Wednesday evening. And
if they tampered just for money, the wine would be mutter?
Correct. Because they open it up, they see there's no money, and they leave it alone. Now,
Rabbi, the money would not be in the wine?
No, the money wouldn't be in the wine. It would be disguised as a wine barrel, and it would have money.
Like I just said. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Now, Hahi Ravisa, this is a very young girl. A very young girl that is not driven to do Yayin Nesach. Dishtakach Dahavas Beit Dani, they found her amongst the barrels. Now, if she actually touched the wine, it would still be usher at least to drink it. They found her amongst the barrels, V'havanikita Ufya Biyoda, and there was some foam of wine on her hand. Amar Rava says, nah, Chamashori, the wine is permitted. She's not driven to be Manasseh. What about the foam? Remember we said that there were gas holes, shaycha, gas holes, so the gases could escape and the wine shouldn't spoil. That some foam came out from the top of the barrel. Even though we don't see any traces of foam, there was some foam, and that's how the foam got on her hand. Now, now this is a very ambiguous case. There was a general with a battalion that came from Narda. Now, right now, we don't know if they're Yidden or Goyim. One assumes that they're Goyim. Pascha Chavyasa Tuva. They opened up many barrels. Kiyasa Ravdimi Amar. Ravdimi came. He said, Uvda Hava Kamei de Rabbi Lazar. This was an incident that happened with Rabbi Lazar. V'shara. V'lo Yadana, I don't know, Imishim de Savala Rabbi Eliezer. Because since we're not sure if it was Goyim or Yidden, it's because he holds like Rabbi Eliezer, the Amma suffix bia tar. We were not sure if a guy came in, it's tar. Or Imisham de Savar, they happened to know that general, and that general, the majority of his troops were Yidden. Imisham de Savar, Ruba de Azle Bahadi Pulmasa, the majority of the soldiers of this particular general, it was a Yiddish battalion, Yisrael Nino. Says the Gemara, but I don't understand. What do you mean? It's a suffix bia. if we assume that normally soldiers are goyim, so then that's not it's not a suffix. Then it's only a suffix if he touched it. High suffix, be a suffix magu. Says well, no. There's another factor over here. The other factor over here is they opened many barrels, more barrels than they could have drank. That points to the fact that they were looking for money. Kavan the mefaskei tuva, since they opened up more barrels than they could have drank, ema adata the mamayna pascha, it's likely that they opened it up for money, so we're not even sure. So that's kesafik biyadami. It's like we're doubtful if they entered, even though we know they entered. But since it points towards the fact that they did it to find money and not to drink, so that makes the suffix less. Now here's an interesting thing. Hahi misovisa, very interesting word. Misovisa is a woman wine merchant. So it's a female version of a male wine merchant. Hahi misovisa, the masrula iklida loivedes koichav. She gave the keys to the cellar to a guy when she went away. So the question is, the guy had the keys. This Goyish woman had the keys. We should be concerned that she went in to tamper with the wine, and she doesn't have to be afraid of anything. She was given the keys. Amar Rab Yitzchak, Amar Rab Elazar, Uvda have a Beit Midrasha. Such a case came up in the pilpul in the base of Medrash. V'amru, and they said she didn't give her the keys to take care of the wine cellar. She just gave her the keys to take care of the keys. She was afraid to travel with the keys. She gave her the keys just to take care of the keys. She knew she had no right to go into the wine cellar, and therefore she was afraid because she could be arrested as a ganav. It's such an interesting svara. If a chaver gave the keys to an Amoritz who's not makbid in Tumah, Tyrus of Tahiris, he could assume that his Tyrus are tar. Lefi Shaloi Masala, he only gave him the keys. Elashmiras Maftechas Bilvat. Says the Gemara, Hashta Tyrus of Tahiris. If his Tyrus are tar, Yayin Nesach B'Bay, it's surely not Yayin Nesach. So the Gemara says, you mean to say that Tyrus is more chomer than Yayin Nesach? That sounds very strange. Says the Gemara, L'meimir the Tyrus alime miyayin nesach, that Tyrus is more stringent than Yayin Nesach, and if we're not worried that the Tyrus were tampered with, we're surely not worried that the Goita tampered with the Yayin Nesach. Yes, the Itmar Chotzer shechaloka b'mesifas. A chotzer, a courtyard, a mesifas is a low divider. Just, I have a courtyard with Barry, and to show the demarcation, there's a very low barrier. Amarav, in that case, if Barry is an Amoritz, then my Tyrus are Tomei. Taros of Timaeus, because it's like it's not separated. It's just a very low barrier, and if I'm not there, Barry will freely go from one side to another. However, if it's a guy, so Gemara wants to say, you see from here, that Tyrus are more stringent than Yayin Nesach. Rabbi Yochanan says, after rois of tyrus. And the tyrus are also tar. Meisvei. So the Gemara asks on Rav, if let's say there's an inner courtyard and an outer courtyard. Hapnimi shel chaver, my courtyard is the inner courtyard. V'achitzayna shel ha'aretz, and the outer courtyard is berries. Oisei chaver shoteach sham peiros, I could spread out my fruit, or maniach sham kelim, or leave my utensils. V'afal pi sheyodei shel ha'aretz magas l'sham, even though Barry could reach in, even so we're not worried that that Barry is going to stick his paws there. So Kashal Rav, because Rav says we are worried when there's a small divider. Amalach Rav says it's not the same thing. Shani Hossam, where it's an inner courtyard and an outer courtyard, Barry has no rights there. Where it's a small divider, everybody passes from one side to another. But Barry had no right to be in the courtyard because Shenitfus Alav Keganim. He could be accused of trespassing, and therefore we're not worried. Tajma. Here, where my roof is higher than Barry's roof. We have adjoining houses. My roof is higher than Barry's roof. Shim Gamliel Eimer Gaga shel chaver lamala megaga shel ha'aretz. My roof is higher than Barry's roof. Oisei chaver sheiteach sham peiros. I could spread my fruit there. Or maniach sham kelim. Or v'vat shloitei yodei shel ha'aretz magas l'sham. As long as Barry can't easily reach there, he would have to climb up. So the Gemara says, Kashal Rabbi Yochanan. This is shver on Rabbi Yochanan. Now, just 1 second. So this is a tricky question. So the Gemara says again, Tajma Rab Shimon Gamli Alaymer, Gaga shel chaver, if my roof is lamala migaga shel ha'aretz, so also chaver shoiteach sham peiros, I could spread out fruit umaniach sham kelim and leave my utensils ubilvat shelo as long as Barry's hand can't reach there. But if Barry's hand can reach there, then we say I'm in trouble. But Rabbi Yochanan said we're in the same courtyard with just a small low divider. My tyrus are permitted. So why over here, if Barry could reach it, is the tyrus tummy? So Amalach Rabbi Yochanan Shani Hasam, it's different in the case of the roof. In the case of the courtyard, Barry has no excuse to be on my side of the courtyard. And therefore Rabbi Yochanan is not worried that Barry will touch my stuff. But Shani Hasam, it's different over there in the case of the roof, because Barry could say that he was planning to put up an antenna on the roof. Right? Because Barry likes to watch Torah at anytime.com with high definition sound. So he was going to put an antenna on his roof, and therefore his hand was extending to measure. Shani Hasim the Iste Ishtamute, that the reason why his hand was there, I'm just measuring. Tajma. Oh, what about Gaga Shel Chaver B'tzad Gaga Shel Amoritz? If the roof of the Chaver is the same as the roof of the Amoritz, Oisei Chaver Sheteach Sham Peiris, or Maniach Sham Kalim, the Chaver could put Peiris there and leave his Kalim, V'afal Pi Sheyodei Shel Amoritz Megas L'Sham, even though the Amoritz's hand reaches there. So the Gemara says that's a kasha l'Rav, because Rav said in the courtyard, if they're next to each other, then the taurus is tamei. My taurus is tamei. But here it says where the roofs are next to each other, the taurus are tar. So this is a kasha on Rav. Amalach Rav. So Rav says, well, obviously Reb Shimon Gamliel doesn't hold this way, because Reb Shimon Gamliel said that it's only if one is higher than the other, but if one is flush with each other, it would be tamei. So Amalach Rav, Lavika Reb Shimon Gamliel, the Koi Kavasi, Reb Shimon Gamliel holds like me, Anodam Reik Reb Shimon Gamliel, I hold like Reb Shimon Gamliel. Now, as we were in process, we were wonderfully joined by Richard Rosenzweig. We will now have a very exciting Chumash here, so if you don't have where to go, it would be wonderful to keep you with us.